Well, happy Friday, everybody. What's up? My name is Indy, and the gentleman next to me here, well, you can't see next to me because I guess he would be next to me in Discord. That's Mr. J. Powell from the Powell Group. And below us we have Larry from Nightdive Studios, and this is Indie Game Business.
Welcome back to the show, Larry. Larry's one of my very best friends in the industry, so it's always nice to have him on. But you've got like awesome news that I want to talk about in depth. Tell us, we can start with the whole, tell us how you got into the industry. We've done that once or twice before, but give us the short version.
Sure. So
tell us the good news.
Absolutely. I've been in the games industry for 21 years, worked for Stardock Systems, worked for GameStop, for a couple of years, and for the last 7.5, almost 8 years, I've been director of business development at Nightdive. Yeah, Jay, time sure goes fast when you're having fun. Recently, I have been named along with my partner at Nightdive, Stephen Kick, as executive producers for the upcoming live action TV series based on System Shock that's coming from our friends over at Binge.
So for those folks who don't know what Nightdive does and what the specialty is there, tell us what makes Nightdive special.
So those people that don't know what Nightdive does must be living in caves someplace. But we're one of the foremost companies in the industry. We specialize in restoring and modernizing classic games. Some of the titles that we've done, beginning in kind of reverse chronological order, Quake and Doom 64, which we were the developers for the publisher Bethesda. We've done Shadow Man. We have an upcoming Power Slave Exhumed game coming out. And our flagship product is a complete remaster of the 1994 classic game System Shock. And that's the basis for the live action show.
All right, so I'm going to get the elephant question in the room out of the way first. Is there any update? Is there any status on No One Lives Forever?
Which it's in progress.
that is progress, though.
We're continuing. I mean, that is you said the elephant in the room. For us, it's the kind of holy grail. We're continuing to have discussions. One of the things that we do is we try to untangle some of the legal knots that prevent these games from being restored to modern audiences. And that one is particularly thorny in that it involved not one, not two, but three of the largest companies in the industry. And so any coordination between those companies, as you might guess, involves a whole lot of lawyers. Whatever the plural of, if it's a gaggle of geese, it's a litter of lawyers. There's a whole lot of them.
Shit tons. That's how many. It's always because I remember I sent you a text a couple of weeks ago because somebody made a comment about it on Twitter, and you're like, no.
Somebody makes a comment about it all the time. So that's exactly what Nightdive's mission is. For those who might not be familiar with us, if you've ever seen the logo, we have an undersea logo. Nightdive's entire mission is to bring back, restore classic games that have been lost in the depths of the murky ocean of rights.
And you're very successful at it.
One of our success stories has been System Shock.
Yeah. So we're seeing a whole, I mean, the TV, getting a TV show based around System Shock is awesome in and of itself. But we're seeing it in this evolving landscape. I don't know if COVID has accelerated or whatever. There's more and more of these specialty channels coming out. And
yes.
So tell us a little bit about how this whole deal came around, and your partners as well.
Sure, absolutely. I'm gonna start off in reverse order. Stephen Kick and I from the Nightdive team have both been named as executive producers, and I'll talk a little bit about what our roles are. But the main guy, the creative mind driving the project itself, is Alan Unger. His title is producer and chief content officer for Binge. If you're a movie fan, you may recognize Alan's name from his debut movie Tapped Out, which was an MMA drama that Alan wrote and directed. Or you might know him from his more recent work, certainly gaming fans will, from his more recent work, the Uncharted live action fan film, which was very, very well received. One of the quotes that's come up, The Verge, referred to it as the only good video game adaptation. So Alan came to us and truly impressed us with his knowledge of System Shock, both of the game and of the history of the IP, and his commitment to make something that would live up to the reputation of System Shock. And perhaps I should back up again for any members of the audience that might not be aware of it. But System Shock, 1994 game, seminal game, launched a whole series of other franchises, including Thief. Deus Ex takes its pedigree from there, and of course the BioShock series of games. So really important game, but again, it was done originally with 1994 technology. When we acquired the rights, the rights came over to us in dribs and drabs, so to speak. Originally, Nightdive was launched for the purpose of restoring System Shock 2. The next game in the classic series, bringing that back to audiences on GOG first, and then on Steam. And that was really successful. And again, that was what the company was really built on. We acquired the rights to the System Shock franchise after that, and have begun restoring System Shock as well. There are what we call enhanced editions. Those are the original games, but with some modifications to make them more accessible, more playable for modern audiences. So the original System Shock, for example, didn't have mouse look, which if you ever tried to play that, and that is still available. That's still available as part of the package with the enhanced edition. If you ever try to play the original version, it's very difficult for modern gamers who have certain expectations on how things work. So we've done those expanded editions of those games. System Shock 2 EE will also be coming out, and we're also working on a VR version of System Shock. So that's kind of the System Shock universe. That said, we have a lot invested in this IP. And Alan has just been absolutely fantastic to work with. But it's really clear that he knows the IP, he knows the history, and he knows what our vision is.
So, tell us a little bit about Binge? That's the high level, because we see, like I said, we're seeing more and more of these specialty shows coming out, and that one's obviously particularly interesting to this industry.
Right. Well, so Binge is, as you've noted, it's going to be another streaming channel. Binge is really focused on and dedicated on shows around gaming IP, which makes Alan just a great person for the position that he's in. Somebody that really is at first, at his heart, a gamer as well as a film producer. And Binge is going to have more shows coming out. I don't want to speak for them. Nightdive and Binge are two separate entities, but very exciting to see video games getting the treatment that they deserve and being ported to film.
So what goes into doing something like this? Because obviously a TV show or a movie for an IP is that holy grail of ancillary rights deals.
Yeah.
How do you even go about getting one of these things started?
Well, so again, a lot of the heavy lifting comes from Binge. They're the ones that our responsibility is to make the game, but of course we want to share assets and vision. Binge, because this is a live action, Binge is the first steps are getting in the appropriate writer, and then the casting. And again, Jay, I don't want to it's not a question of you know me. I'm likely to spill the beans. But I do not want to speak for Binge. But certainly, at some future time, you might want to have Alan on as a guest. I think he would really really impress you with his knowledge of the gaming ecosystem.
Well, that's always good to see that we are, going into all sorts of different areas. And we've had some folks reach out to us on the consulting side recently that aren't companies that aren't, even remotely interested, involved in the industry, but are now wanting to get into the industry. My take on that is because, last year when we were under a pandemic and all the other industries started, trickling off or getting impacted. And then our industry was in some cases making so much money that companies didn't know what to do with it.
We always know what to do with it, but that aside, you're right. I think that the revenues, the gaming industry in total last year during the pandemic certainly had a banner year. I think the number that I saw was something of around $170 billion. That might be off, but what's $1 billion here and there between friends,
we'll
right?
give you a plus or minus. I'd say $5 billion on that.
Yeah. So, that's true. And that certainly caught the notice of a lot of industries, ranging from venture capital people who are now interested in investing in game development studios to the movie industry. Another part about that, and one of the reasons why Nightdive had a really good year last year is, as you know, we've always been a completely distributed company. I tell people all the time, only half jokingly, that Nightdive never sleeps, but that's truer than you might think. Our team pretty much literally spans the globe. We go from New Zealand up to Stockholm, Sweden. We don't have any developers in either the Arctic or the Antarctica to this point, but what the hell else is there to do down there besides play video games? So
exactly. So how deeply are y'all going to be involved in this? Is it one of those where they're going to take care of everything, but they're going to use you all as a reference, for it? Or are y'all going to be creating assets or
So Steve's role in this is to really ensure that there's a consistent vision between the video game and the live action treatment of it. We will provide whatever is needed in there, and that's Steve is really the one that this has been his life project. The System Shock, I guess I can call it now the System Shock universe, right? So that's really his area. I'll be doing the same thing that I do in the gaming world, which is to make sure that person A has everything that they need, and going out and finding person B that might be able to supply those things, and coordinating those efforts. So I tell people this all the time, and I don't know if we have anybody young that's looking to get into the video game business, or anybody that's looking to get into live action work. But I've been saying this for quite a while. I know you've heard me say it. If you really, really want to be part of the circus, and you don't care how, just put on your resume that you're willing to sweep up after the elephant, right? And that's a lot of what I do. It's funny when I tell people that I work from home, and this is my post-COVID office because I can't get out to go to a gym anymore. But I tell people I work from home and that I'm in the video games industry. It sounds a lot more romantic than what it is. When I then explain to them that portions of my day are reviewing contracts, meetings with lawyers, working on Excel sheets, doing forecasting, and always standing between our development team and our clients. That's a lot less romantic than that sounds like playing video games at home.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do not have the luxury of doing what everyone assumes that you and I do, and we don't sit around and play video games all day. I mean, maybe half the day, but not.
I would say speak for yourself, but you clearly are. But yes, yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Larry once described our job, and he and I work in very similar roles, as it can be summarized by, I know a person.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what is, and that's the fun stuff. What we do isn't the most, I don't want to say popular. There aren't a lot of people in the industry who do the things that you and I and those of us who have been in it in the nexus of this for many years do. But we literally work in a position of the industry where we can say, hey, look, we've got this awesome game IP, and it'd be kind of cool if it was a TV show, and literally go out and make that happen. And that is
there is that, Jay. But again, I will tell you, I spent probably half my time this week. We have a new developer. Well, actually, he was somebody that was part of our team before, had to leave for health reasons, and has rejoined us. I had to order 3 dev kits for him. Somebody's got to do it, right? And if you don't have any experience ordering developer kits, which are not the same as the units at the store, but as scarce. If you think that's a 1, 2, 3 process, it's not. You go in there and you go to place an order, and they turn around to you and say, "What do you want the dev kit for?" To make games for your platform.
To fry eggs. That's what we want it for.
Was that a loaded question? But that's that's a lot of it, and it doesn't change in the. Funny thing is that it doesn't change transitioning, and I used the word film before, which it's just one of those funny things. I mean, I don't think we've used film in I guess I can get rid of my Super 8 projector, but there are tasks in the movie industry that are identical to the tasks in the game industry, at least in concept. It's just you're talking to different people. So that whole I know a guy, I know a person is really true. You have to go out there and find who the right person is, who can help you solve a problem, and then get their attention.
So once this is all up and running, how long is it going to take them to put this show together and have it launch?
There is no date assigned to it. I'll also tell you, it's a funny part of the games industry. We at Nightdive never set a ship by date. We never say that. But people in the industry fill those dates in for us. We don't send game. Here's a funny thing, and this is kind of a meta comment about the games industry, but the same thing is true for the film industry. So all the time, fans are pushing you. When is the game going to be out? When is the game going to be out? How come the game is delayed? Why did you think it takes an extra month? How dare you? And then you ship a really good game like Cyberpunk 2077. Really excellent game, sold a gazillion units, and the first thing that people say is, well, it's not finished. Why didn't you take another month to finish it? Or another? And that's fine. Companies that are independent like Nightdive, we can kind of push back on that. We can tell people that particularly for our strongest titles, the game will ship when the game is ready. That's not always feasible. Quake, for example, had to be done in time for QuakeCon, but more or less, our calendar is we're going to try to get as close to perfection as we can, and we're going to put the time in to make that happen. The same thing is true. The same thing is true in films. Films sometimes have a rigorous, certainly for the publicly traded companies. One of the reasons that Binge really stood out to us is they're not under those pressures, right? They can take as long as it takes to get the work the way we all want to see it be. So that's a long non-answer, Jay, and I'm aware of that, but that's the reality of it. My expectation is that it will be not too long, relatively short horizon for that. But we leave that in the hands of our partners. We're not pushing them to have it out by a certain date.
It is one of the luxuries that companies that are not beholden to a ton of stockholders or these hard dates that you see with a lot of major studios and things like that. We can do that. I mean, but at the same time, you're right. There is that whole, we want it now. Or wait, why didn't you just like fix these bugs? That has to come up a lot with, the work that you all do on the game side, because you are taking things that like literally don't run anymore and getting them working and launching them out there. And you have one of the best community managers in the industry. How do y'all deal with, the, for lack of a better word, the damn toxic gamer base that is out there?
Well, I'll have some news coming up probably later this year or the beginning of next year about toxic communities. But we're really lucky, and you're right. So first of all, the person that you're talking about as our community managers, as our best community manager, Carly Wetzel, and I'm calling it out. Carly has been promoted. She still maintains the community, or has oversight, I should say, over the community. But Carly has been promoted as a producer and has been the lead producer on some of our titles.
Oh, that is awesome.
We are very, very grateful for the work that Carly does. Carly also maintains a lot of the back end systems, particularly the database and assignments. So she does a really fantastic job on that. But you're right. I mean, Carly has done an amazing job that we do not have a toxic community. What's interesting is that if you look at, I can't say that we go without complaints, particularly on our Kickstarter pages. But if you notice, the same people complaining, account for a high percentage. It's kind of that Pareto principle, right? That the 20% of the people do 80% of the work, and 80% of the people do 20% of the work. You find that the complaints come from that. While there may be a lot of complaints, they come from a small base. And the way that we handle that is we try to talk to them and explain to them on a one-on-one, and using exactly the analogy that I did, of everyone wants the game out in a hurry, but everyone wants the game out bug-free. Let's talk a little bit about bugs. So we've worked with, we have our own QA department, but we've also worked with the QA department at Bethesda, over the last couple of games. No matter how much you torture test a game, when it goes out live, when it goes out into the world, you might have 20 people in your QA lab running maybe 30, 40 machines, trying to test every possible scenario. Then you get the game out and it sells 1 million copies. And suddenly you're finding that there's this one video card that's having a problem, or it only works, the problem only occurs, on certain times. I mean, killing bugs is really, really hard. Those little buggers run around quickly. So they just scurry away from you. But that, but the only thing that the only treatment that you can have to try to minimize, how few come out and are found in a release game, is by putting the time in. We've had bugs come up that only occur Oh, in the last portion of the game, when you have certain items in your inventory, or you drop an item and you can't get out of a room, I mean, it's an infinite number of scenarios, and to try to accomplish that, to try to find out all possible variations, it just takes time.
And it takes a ton of patience and, quite frankly, a bit of luck to go along with it as well. Finding these things. It's with all the new channels that are coming out for distribution.
Yeah,
is that getting worse, or I mean, I know PC is always a clusterfuck. There's just so many combinations. All that sort of stuff is nuts. But with the different stuff coming out in terms of like cloud gaming and live streaming,
so Stadia and
Yeah.
Luna, Google Stadia and Luna. It's a whole new world there, and for companies that make games, it is challenging. I'm used to somebody telling me that when they play it on a Linux machine running it through Wine, that there's I'm used to that. When they tell me it plays fine on their Sony TV, but when they switch to their TCL, that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's something that's kind of beyond. And in those cases, Jay, as you kind of shift the responsibility to your partners, but that's why it's really important to have those partnership relations. Again, I'll mention something. I'll mention just talking about positives. When Cyberpunk 2077 came out, and again, it was absolutely a fantastic game as it shipped, even with the issues. But my understanding is that people playing it on Stadia, it was absolutely error-free.
I saw that as well, which tells me that there's obviously issues in PC configurations that they hadn't worked through. So yeah, I mean,
before I got into the games industry, for a time before that, I sold computers. We were a white box OEM manufacturer. We had large clients all the way up to General Motors, universities, but we sold PCs. And I had a customer come into the store once, and we had a public facing storefront. A customer come in and say to me very kindly that the reason that he loved doing business with our company, with me in particular, is because I knew so much about the latest technology. And I just remember stopping and saying, I don't mean to be insulting, but you need to understand, I don't sell anything that was invented more than 90 days ago. So how much in-depth knowledge do you think I can have? Yes, I read the specs and I can parrot them back to you, but that was back in the old days, and if anything, it's gotten more complicated. That's also one of the reasons why there's been a transition to console. But you mentioned the streaming services. We're at a funny point now in game development that if you're going to make a game for the Sony platform, you really have to consider whether you're going to make it PS4 or PS5. If you're going to make a game for the the Xbox, you really have to consider what versions you're going to use. We haven't had that come out with Nintendo Switch yet, but we might be on the cusp of that. That there'll be multiple versions of the same console. Did you try it on the OLED screen? Jay, you might want to check your sound. I'm not getting either of you guys.
It's because I had the little button that shuts me up flashing. That's why. Sorry. That transition isn't something we've had to deal with in the industry before, because generally when
it's pretty quiet on my side. I'm hoping you can hear me, but I'm not getting your audio.
I can hear you, Jay.
Okay.
Indy, not coming in for you either.
Right. We can hear.
It's your side.
Yeah. We can hear you.
Yes.
I'll try my sound settings.
So while Larry's getting that straight,
Got it.
Got it.
One click and somehow magic happened. Sorry about that. Could you just back up a second and what terrible things did you say about me?
Nothing I'm going to repeat. That's all that you need to know.
Listen. I got Indy on my side. Aside from the fact that Dan and I know each other, we go to the same barber. So,
So what I was saying is, typically, up to this point in the industry, when the PlayStation 4 came out, for example, there was a fall off in development for the PlayStation 3.
Right.
But we're not seeing that this time around. And there's, having to decide whether or not you're going to develop for the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox One or Xbox X or S or whatever the hell version they're on
S and
right
M.
now.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Not my job. Got it.
That's the other one. I mean, that's a fundamental difference. Are we seeing that primarily because of this whole, lack of inventory, or do you think we're entering a part of the industry now, or a time in the industry where we're going to literally have 2 or 3 different versions?
I think that this is kind of a unique time. I think that the crunch in the supply chain throughout has prevented the number of units of PlayStation 5 have sold, but people who can't get them are hanging on to their PlayStation 4s. I know for companies like Nightdive, it wasn't a difficult decision. We're going to support, just to make it easier, Gen 8 and Gen 9 of the consoles. But that means that we're going to have essentially, 4 versions of the game, 2 Sony, 2 Xbox versions of the same game. And we want the user experience, to be as close to identical on those as we can make it.
So with all of these platforms out there right now, especially for smaller developers and smaller publishers, how can they go about making an informed decision on which platforms to prioritize?
Well, I think that they can look at the user bases, but backward compatibility is also something of an advantage, and both Sony and Microsoft, to their credit, have really worked on that in the current generation. But it's tough. I would say if you're a small developer and you're looking at what your options are, stick with PC. There's the PC audience every year, every couple of years, somebody comes out and says PC gaming is dead, and then the numbers come out and it sure isn't. So that's within that space. But otherwise, the only way to make an informed decision is to do that kind of research and look at the adoption, and see who. And see who is the where the largest audience is. Something that I learned back in the Stardock days. Stardock was a PC only company back during the time that I was there, and one of the things that we did is we tried to lower the minimum specs required for a game as far as we could to reach as wide an audience. I know that when we shipped the first Turok game, so that's back in 2015. Before the game came out, one of the concerns was, can people play it on a laptop without a discrete video card? And again, that was a bit of a challenge. We were very fortunate. We had a great relationship. It's again the I know a guy, but we had a great relationship with Intel as well as with AMD and NVIDIA. For AMD and NVIDIA, the concern is always, do you have features that are going to help us sell our highest end card? I mean, of course, that's I expect everybody that's in business to be looking to selling their own things. But Intel really was great help in getting our games to work on Intel integrated graphics. And if there are people out there, if there are developers out there or or listening to this cast later, one of the things that I recommend is Intel has got a set of tools for optimizing your game that are free, and particularly if you're a small developer starting out, free is a great word.
Free is always a wonderful word. We're also dealing with a thing of, okay, you want us to promote your high-end cards, but no one is able to actually buy your high-end cards.
Well, it's funny. That wasn't a challenge until a couple of years ago. That's not all COVID related, but that's been hit by a double whammy of COVID and crypto mining. That said, the companies did step up, and they've made every effort on there. It's not just a question of helping you sell the card. It's a question of, if somebody has just bought a high-end AMD or NVIDIA card, and has played the same game on their machine prior, now installs the new video card, they want to see that they got some bang for their buck. They want to see that your game takes advantage of that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's something that one can expect consumers to feel all the time.
All right, we got a quick question coming in from Twitch. Are you guys hiring for programming positions over at Nightdive?
We are set for the current time, but there is a jobs at Nightdive Studio page. I would certainly send your resume in, or your CV in, because Nightdive has we've got a lot of irons in the fire.
So let's dive into the world that you and I do enjoy of theory crafting. We've got all of this stuff coming in, and you can, I'm sure when Binge launches, you're going to be able to watch Binge on your Xbox or your PlayStation.
Yep.
With that and Luna coming in and Stadia, what sort of pie in the sky options for crossovers do you see, when you all launch Steam on the same platform that you can access the television series on?
There are a couple of things that I envision, and you will pardon me on this. I'm trying to remember. It was a sci-fi series that was out. It was on the Sci-Fi Channel that was out, that had a tie-in to an MMO game. And I'm blocking on the name of it.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember what the name of it is.
It was on Earth after the aliens have come, and they did some really creative things there, where events that happened in the show were later mirrored in the game, and events that happened in the game were later mirrored in the show. And I think that is a really compelling vision. That's not something for Nightdive and not something for right now, but that's something that I see in the future. There was a thought that I had in prepping for this discussion this morning, and it's just one of those random, what do they call it, shower thoughts, right? We in our industry made a terrible mistake years ago. We called our industry, we called the products that we make video games, and what we should have called them was interactive art, because I think that makes a lot more sense. The graphics in games are now on a par with, if not exceeding, the things that we do in animated movies. We use the same technology. I shouldn't even say just animated, but we use the same technology. Both Unity and Unreal are used in filmmaking. So those are things that I see. I see a closer synergy on that. I think that the vision of we've done a kind of poor job historically in porting movie or TV IP to games, and I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it was disjointed creative visions. I'm not sure about that, but again, we are getting better and better about that. Who wouldn't want to watch a movie, walk out and say, I would have done it differently if I was a character in the movie, and then go home, fire up your PC or your console, and be a character in that, making different choices, one way or another. I see more and more of a synergy there. So I'm trying to avoid the return of the FMV. But maybe
But we all love Night Trap. I mean,
we're maybe we're ready. Maybe we're ready for a new rendition of that. Something that's a little bit different, and a little bit higher quality on that. So I mean, those are. But just as a vision thing, Jay, I see that as something that that has possibilities. We also talked about this new post-COVID world. I don't want to see movie theaters close. In fact, this Saturday I'm going to go see Dune. It'll be the first time that I have gone to a movie theater, post the 2020 meltdown. So I'm kind of excited about that. But I think you made a really good point. As close as the synergies have been before, if you're consuming, and I don't mean to be fancy, if you're watching your movie on your Xbox and you have the opportunity to play a game based on that same IP on your Xbox, now we're not talking about two different audiences.
Yeah.
We're talking about one audience and about being able to market it that way.
All right. Speaking of Dune, the No Man's Sky just had, which I'm back hooked in playing again. They just launched yesterday a crossover.
Absolutely. And bless them for that. I'm also going to say I used Cyberpunk 2077 simply because it was a more recent one. But No Man's Sky probably did release a bit earlier than it should have. But if you stay with it and you stick with the developers and you give them the opportunity, and again, the one thing that you can't replace is time, they do a damn good job of getting it right.
Yeah. I mean, we see that from your friends at Bethesda too. I mean, everybody flagged on Fallout 76 when it launched, but the reality is it's a great game.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And bless those guys for sticking with it themselves.
Every time I see, the wonderful gamers out there and a game launches and it does poorly and they're like, oh, this is dying. I don't know why they're investing in it. They have to be crazy to keep doing this. Well, they don't realize is that, that publisher or that developer is seeing all the data on the back end. They know how many people are playing the game, what the level of interaction is, regardless of the media coverage of it.
Yeah.
And that's what fuels a whole lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely. Do you think we're lined up more for, small integrations like we're seeing with Dune and No Man's Sky versus the big total conversion? I mean, because historically, the reason that there's such a disconnect between movies and the games that are made from them is because it takes a hell of a lot longer to make a game than it does to take a movie.
Yeah. And that is true. I would say that and again that's been part of our process with Binge that they've been a great partner because we're able to say to them, to tell them and to show them. More importantly, to show them what the game looks like.
So, is it going to be based in the original game or the sequel, or where is this
it is based in Citadel Station, based on it would be very familiar to people that know the System Shock game.
Gotcha. So yeah, that answers my next question of what kind of carryovers and all that sort of is, because you mentioned the System Shock future, so I'm going to assume, the System Shock universe. So I'm going to assume at some level, y'all have got plans for this IP down the road.
I tell people all the time that I answer every question that I'm asked, as long as you understand that no comment is also an answer.
That counts as the question. An answer. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is, because you all have been working on this for a long time, and
we have
done several iterations of it, and there's multiple things that have come out and
so
in the news. You don't invest that amount of time in something that you're going to one-off launch.
That's right. So I can tell people that once System Shock launches, our dev team will segue over to System Shock 2. That's as far as I can make a commitment now, but that will be something that will be happening, assuming our loyal fans support us. So send money.
Yeah, I ain't worried about
unmarked bills in a plain envelope.
that is the least of my concerns. So, I mean, is there an updated time frame for the new launch?
The game will come out when it's ready.
Soon. There we go.
Soon, TM. Yes,
exactly. So if y'all got any questions out there, even what's listening Discord or Facebook,
so I do want to circle back. I do want to circle back to something. I don't know who asked about sending their resume into Nightdive, but I'm going to give some unsolicited advice. But Jay, I think this is gonna resonate for you as well. If people out there are looking for a job at Nightdive or another studio, particularly at small to medium-sized independent studios, I've got some great advice for you. Be a generalist. Don't focus just on one thing. Learn on how to do other things as well, because there will always be opportunities if you can say, well, my main focus is this, but I also do that. I'm really an art guy, but I can help out with VFX. If you're looking for a job in management, if you want to go into into community management, it's great to say, hey, I want to manage your Discord server. I want to stay in touch with your fans, but I also will manage the social media. And I can do metrics to take a look at at numbers from Twitter and Facebook and your Twitch channel. Those are all things that are really good. I mentioned that that during my day job, I do a lot of work on contracts. I mean, we have a wonderful lawyer, a great law firm that we work with, but I usually go between, I will usually do a pre-review before it gets sent to the lawyer and say, these are the areas that I'm concerned about. These are the things that I'm not concerned about, which is probably more important. But I also do a lot of spreadsheet stuff and a lot of forecasts. So, just be a generalist. Try to learn as wide a range of skills as you possibly can.
Don't you think there should be some sort of common law degree that people like you and I end up having? It's like, no, I can't go work on your trust or your last will and testament, but for God's sakes, I've seen more contracts for publishing and licensing and distribution than most of the attorneys have. Same for you. We should get some sort of little asterisk, beside it, honorary degree, anything.
Mine says not as dumb as he looks, but your point is well taken, Jay.
RJ on the Discord answered our question for us. The television show was Defiance.
Thank you so much. Yes, and it was a great show. I think it only made it 2 seasons, but that said, the synergy. I hate using that word because it sounds like I should be wearing a suit when I say that, but the synergy between the video game and the television show was absolutely extraordinary. I will say one thing about that, and this again goes our shift to more distributed everything. One of the challenges when everybody wants to get a show signed up by a major network, right? But when you're on a major network, you have to operate within their time frames, right? If the show is on Thursday at 7:00, next week there's going to be another episode on Thursday. Whether you're ready or not, that's going to be on. I always used to say, Jay, this. My original background was in theater. I always used to tell other actors, when they'd say, well, gee, I just can't memorize this, or I can't get that one scene down. I was going to say, on opening night, the curtain's going to open whether you're ready or not. and here we go, folks.
Let me introduce you to the phrase "fake it till you make it."
That's right. That's right. So those are those challenges. But if you're working with smaller companies, if you're promoting your stuff on YouTube, on Twitch, which have enormous audience potential, there isn't the same time frame. You're not bound by the same constraints.
So this is what I love about having you on. You know, our conversations bounce from one thing to another, despite what we were originally planning or even thought we were planning. I want to touch on what you mentioned about Carly being a producer now, in line with what you were talking about in terms of being a generalist. I know the companies that I was at previously, we still don't see a lot of people coming out of school with a producer degree. There are a few of them. You have a higher chance of getting one of those than finding a school that teaches the business and marketing of games. But a lot, actually all of the producers that we had, you know, at the publishing firm that I was at 10 years ago, they all came out of QA basically.
Yep.
And you see a lot of that, people coming into and getting into the production side of the industry from somewhere else.
So that happens, that the possibility of that, and again, I'm directing this to the audience. First of all, I'll tell you exactly what Carly did, and how Carly moved up the chain. Carly was always the first person to say, "Do you need help with that?" Mm-hmm. Carly was also had the ability to say, "I don't know how to do that now, but give me a half an hour and I will." And that is not only a talent, but that's a particular mindset that people have. That's a great way to move up in the organization. I'm hesitant to recommend QA these days. Not at Nightdive. Our QA manager Leo is absolutely wonderful, and he is certainly part of the management team and recognized that way. But I know a lot of the really big companies there have been issues around the treatment of people in QA.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Our company was like super tiny. I mean, there was like 8 of us. And so the pipeline to producer at our publishing firm typically went, you worked retail at GameStop. We went and bought something, found out that you really knew your shit about games, hired you as a QA person, and then, you know, within like a 2 to 3 month period, you were automatically bumped up to producer because we needed somebody to do it. But it is very much a soft skill thing.
I can't think of any position outside of QA that requires you to know everything about everything.
Yes.
You know, QA, a good QA manager, and again, our friend Leo is perfect example of that. Works intimately with the directors, with the developers, with the producers. Will work on, you know, has knowledge of hardware as well as, you know, they don't have to be a programmer, but they have to have some insights into how that works. And liaises with every person in the organization. So, you know, if you're looking to break into the games business, you know, find yourself a small to mid-size developer, publisher that's of interest to you, and work for their QA team.
It's we had one of our interns this week talking about a job, and they were looking at something at one of the big studios, and I was like, no. You don't want to go there. They're going to chew you up and spit you out.
Well, I remember talking to one of our artists and talking about the ability to work on anything in the game, and saying, well, you know, you understand when you go to a AAA studio, you don't get to work on the archery stuff. No, you get to work on the feathers on the arrow.
Are they properly animated?
And you don't talk to the guys on the bow team because you're in competition with them. So you get into those kinds of things. Really good organizations run flat, and people work from one area to another.
That's always my recommendation. And I saw on Twitter, I think I read last night, someone asking the question, and this question bugged me years ago as well. It's like, do you need that rubber stamp of a big studio on your resume to be successful in this industry long term? I argue that no, you don't. But I mean, how does that factor in these days?
It certainly helps, but you know what we hire people on? We hire people, first of all, in our initial days, Daniel Grayson was the first employee at Nightdive beyond the founder and his wife, beyond Steve and Alex. Daniel actually met Steve through Steam by telling him how buggy the game that he had just released was, and that Daniel could fix it. I'm not sure the conversation went that way. I think Daniel may have started off saying how buggy it was, or that there was a bug, and Steve just threw up his hands in frustration and said, "Well, could you fix it?" Or Jay, we have this in a quote in common. We don't need problem finders. We need problem solvers.
Yes.
Right. I use that all the time. But he said, sure. And he became employee number one.
That's an email you have to send very carefully, though.
It was actually chat on Steam. So that's one thing. Discord has been, tremendous. We've been an early Discord partner, but Discord has been tremendous in allowing people to interact with developers. I mean, I do that all the time on Twitter as well. But so those are great ways to break into the industry, or at least to find that out. But once you're in, and you're going to start with an entry level position because you're entry level, do ask, what else can I help with? When you do things, when you're successful at things, and even if you're not in the industry yet, if you're participating in a game jam, what sells a candidate more than working at a AAA studio? Walking in with a portfolio and saying, "This is the work that I've done already." That's really compelling.
Sorry, I'm getting random messages here.
No, you're multitasking. Go ahead.
Anyway, I mean, we're running short on time, so it's kind of wrapping up anyway. But Larry, thank you, especially for coming on such short notice. But I'm very excited for you and Stephen and the whole team. It's not a minor thing to be able to work on some of the classic franchises that you all do, but then be successful in bringing that over to other mediums. So a hearty congrats on that side.
Thank you, Jay. And we could not have done it without the support of a lot of people in the industry. And that includes you and Dan as well, and Indy as well. And could not have done it without the support of our fans.
Well, as we leave you for today, what do you want to plug? What is coming up from Nightdive that everybody needs to know about and throw you their money for?
Very excited about Power Slave Exhumed, which will be coming out. That is a joint project. Nightdive is doing the development work, but we work with our friends at Throwback on that. I'm very excited about that coming out, and we have the console ports of Shadow Man coming soon. TM.
When it's ready.
Well, Jay, thanks always for hosting us, and cheers to you and to the audience.
And thank you as well. Dan, can you wrap us up?
Let's get it out of here. Thanks, Larry. And if you want to, you should come on to Discord, discord.gg/indiegame.business. And for everything Indie Game Business, whether that's social medias or the website, you want to learn about the conferencing, just Google indiegame.business. Do you want to announce the next conference, Jay?
Yes. So our next Indie Game Business, this is our 9th or 10th conference. We've literally been doing this longer than anyone else in the industry. It's coming up the 1st through the 3rd of December. We, as always, are looking for sponsors to help us roll these things out. But for all the devs out there, it's a wonderful time to network and to meet, a lot of the publishers, pitch your games to them. Tickets start at a, paltry $50. And here's the deal. If you are in a situation where you can't swing that $50 and you've got a demo that you can show and you want to pitch to your publisher, message me, find me on Discord, drop me an email. I'll hook you up. We do this so you have these opportunities, and we don't want to gatekeep any of that, behind anything. So all of the sessions, as always at our conferences, are completely free to watch. You can go to our YouTube page and see all of them. But yeah, it's coming up in about a month. Very excited.
That's exciting. All right. Thanks so much. And we will see you next time.
Thanks.